Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Investing Mate. So in this video we are going to talk about setting up good savings account. So in a previous video, which is going to be here, we talked about the 7 steps to create wealth, and one of them is setting up good savings account. And why do we want this? We want savings accounts that are going to give us the most benefits possible in terms of interest rates, good ATM services, and also saving us maybe some money in international traveling. So let's start this video. Okay, so the first thing that I think is super important to understand is that here in Australia, all the banks have an insurance backed by the government for up to 250k per bank per person. So that means if that bank goes bankrupt, the bank is going to go through that process and whatnot, but the government is going to pay back all your money for up to 250k per bank. So that means if, for example, you have an account in Commonwealth and you have an account in ING, for each of those you have the right for 250k in the case both of them go bankrupt, which I guess is a really slim case, but it's really important to know because a lot of people think like, oh no, I want to be with a big bank because it's less likely that it's going to go bankrupt. Well, don't worry, the government has you covered in case everything goes south, so there shouldn't be an issue like determining which bank is for you based on this specifically. The government will provide for you in case something goes terribly wrong with your bank. So in Australia and probably around the world, there are 2 different types of banks. So the first one is the traditional banks, the brick and mortar banks, which are normally the bigger ones. They have more costs, they have way more branches around the world, they have lots of ATMs, and in general terms they tend to be a bit more expensive and they tend to have normally a better service, let's say. And then you also have the online banks, which is a fairly new trend, which are banks that they have way lower costs and at the same time they have some different services for the clients, which include several variety. But okay, let's start going through each of the difference for these banks. Okay, so let's talk first about the traditional banks. So the traditional banks include banks like Commonwealth, and normally these banks have a really high cost of operation because they have a lot of branches, lots of physical places that they need to keep up with, way more people hired. So this means that normally they cannot give you that much interest rate because they basically use your money to lend it to other people to get some interest. So that's basically how banks work, right? So they cannot give you back a lot of interest rate. And so for example, in Commonwealth they only give you 0.05%, which is basically nothing. And if you take into account inflation, you are basically losing money every year. They also have like a more serious savings account, but it's really restricted and they only give you 0.5%, which is still not a lot, and you cannot take out money every month because otherwise you lose the whole interest of the whole month. So I really consider that if you want to have one of these banks, it's probably good if you only have your checkings account and then you can have your full, let's say, savings in a bank that gives you a bit more interest. Now, the online banks, or neobanks as they call themselves, are basically banks that do everything online, which means they have way lower costs, which means they can give you a better interest rate. So for example, I use 2 banks at the moment. One of them is ING, which is, I think, phenomenal. They give you a 1.8% per year, which is a massive increase, like 36 times what Commonwealth gives you. And it has also an amazing set of features that you can get also for free. So for example, one of the features that I love the most is that you can use any ATM, and with any, I mean any. For example, I went to Japan, I used the ATMs like crazy, and they basically gave me back all the fees, including those dodgy ATMs from 7-Eleven. I used them and they give me all the money back, even this crazy ATM fee that they normally charge you. and that ended up saving me like a lot of money, like 10%, because I also got an amazing deal on the exchange rate with ING. So I was blown away just with this. I was super happy with this bank, and so far it has been amazing. Like, they give me great interest rate and they also have a great service. So thumbs up for ING. Definitely not a sponsor, but I'm super happy with them. And the other one that I started using recently because of the drops of the interest rate was Sinja or Sinja, I don't know how to pronounce that, but they are basically fairly similar to ING. At the moment I'm only using it for my savings account, so it's only like for my stuff that I want to keep for emergencies, my emergency fund, and it has been pretty great so far. They give 2.25%, so that is like 45 times the amount of money that you can get with Commonwealth, which sounds crazy. But yeah, this bank is fairly new. They are kind of in beta the whole time, so they are still adding new features and catching up with the normal banks, which is why I don't totally recommend it at the moment, but let's see how it goes. I think so far it has been amazing. The card actually looks super cool too. They also have free ATMs, and they have an amazing rate of 2.25% per year, and they haven't changed it so far. I wouldn't be surprised if they will change it because the interest rate keeps dropping in all the other banks, but so far I'm really happy with it. It has a great app and it works just really nicely. Okay, so now as a summary, we really want banks that give us more for our money and at the same time give us a great service. That's why I really recommend you to consider these other banks, because in our path to wealth, we need our money to work hard for us. And you know, having an increase of 45 times, 36 times just by changing your bank account, even though it seems small, and I normally don't recommend having a lot of money in a bank account just because you can have it in places where it gives you way more money, as we are going to discuss later in our investing videos. It is important though that you keep an emergency fund, so we may as well have it in a place where it gives us a great interest rate and at least it keeps up with inflation. Okay guys, this was pretty much everything for this video. I'm going to leave down below some links for you to check out the banks that I personally recommend, but of course please do your own research, but at least consider these banks because I think they are pretty good. They give you a really good interest and it's going to help your money grow faster. Also consider checking the other video where we talk about the 7 steps of wealth. I think it will give you a good understanding of all the steps that we need to define to be able to create wealth. And also consider subscribing if you like this kind of content, because we will be going more in depth into the different steps. We'll be talking about also different topics of investing, personal finances. So consider joining this community, and also let me know down below what is your experience with the different banks that you have been in contact with. I personally think having these online banks is a great advantage, and at the same time they have a pretty good service because I personally don't like going to the bank. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Do your own research and I will see you in the next one.